can't believe how well my sister's body holds up. Kinda hard to move when you're just ahead. I wonder where everybody is. I can't wait to see them again. But before that can happen, there's some stuff I gotta do first. Like finding a body. Or at least some legs. I sure hope Kaine and Vice haven't killed each other yet. I swear, you leave them alone for 1 minute.
What is the downloadable content? What happens if I select this? I'm kind of curious. I'm already regretting this. Already regretting this. Oh, the world of recycled vessel. So for $7, you can get bonus costumes, weapons, and a special quest, and it has something to do with Nier's wife, eh? I'm going to decline to do that. So, is everything the same when you go through it again like this? I mean, I personally think that it's, a little... I mean, I don't really like it when after a big dramatic finale, there's more. Especially if it means sort of going back before it happened like this. To me, it sort of takes away from the big punch of it, you know, the big impact. But I am curious. Does this... or, like, the same quest that we had underway before. Yeah, it's literally taking us back to before we even got all these other quests, huh? Interesting. Like, if the humans indeed have been aging and growing old and having kids and stuff for all these years, the supposedly fake ones, then how are these bodies that are being reserved for the Shades? Like, that doesn't make sense. Especially since the Shades already have bodies, albeit not great bodies. Like, how could there be bodies reserved for the Shades when the bodies are in use and have been rotting and dying away and going through normal life processes for so long? Especially this one, Nier. Like, how is his body still so much like the one of the Nier from 1200 years ago, or 1300 years ago, or however long ago? And Yona, for that matter. I don't know. And the odd part is that in the end, I don't even know that Nier himself really learned anything. Still, it's nice to finally know the story of Nier. For so long, I've known about this video game in a vague way, and it's just sort of been a kind of emotion in my head, an emotional space, rather than anything concrete. But now, there's something concrete I have to attach to those emotions. And I think that's kind of... well, there's a satisfaction in that. Notice that it says ending A. I believe there are at least endings through the letter D. Though, it might go a bit further. Suffice to say, they don't exactly get happier, but that's probably the point. I have put a bit more thought into Nier, and as for what the point is, I'm not really sure. Perhaps it means to show us, well, first of all, that situations are more complex than they may at first appear, and so we shouldn't take for granted that, oh, you know, one side is purely monstrous. In fact, I think that it's oddly optimistic, in its way, because, in this case, the conflict basically stems from poor communication. Neither side really understands the other. And, well, like, there's no force that's in this just because they're greedy, just because they're cruel. If only there were more communication between them. And actually, this kind of leads into one of the problems with the story. Why are Devila and Popola keeping all this a secret? It's not the only plot hole, but Think about it. They are in such a perfect position to mediate in some way between the Shades and the replicants. They understand what's going on here. And they speak the Shade language, and they're respected people in not just their community, but in cities around this entire region of the world. They could say, like, the Shades obviously have some kind of existence, and after 1,000 years, well, it is unfair that they're not able to go back to the bodies that were built for them. It's also obviously unfair that they are not able to go back to... Like, it's also unfair for these bodies to have the lives they've led taken from them. And surely, both sides being basically well-intentioned humans, they could understand that. They could come to some kind of an agreement. At least those Shades that aren't totally lost, because some of them are.
Sup?
But Popola and Devila don't even contemplate that. It's kinda ludicrous. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't you, approach that? Why wouldn't you even try, at least? Even if some kind of accord couldn't be reached. And there are other questions, too.
The lost shrine is at the other end of this cave.
And the Shadow Lord's castle lies just beyond.
Let us make haste.
For example, these replicant bodies, what exactly are they? In what possible way are they different from just human bodies? But here's one of those moments of Shades talking that I mentioned earlier. Those two armored Shades Nier fought were named Hansel and Gretel. That's one of the trademarks in the Drakengard series. That there are that you play through the game multiple times, and each time, new story elements are revealed that can rather drastically alter the player's perception of what's going on. You see, Hansel and Gretel, and really all of the bosses, or at least most of them, are Shades that are not totally gone, that do still retain some kind of awareness of their situation. Who are, in other words, still human. But there are other problems with this story too, as I was saying. For one thing, these replicants. So let's accept that in some way these aren't just the same thing as before. Because they're supposed to be immune to the Black Scroll. I mean, that was the whole point. But they're not! Obviously! I'm actually mistaken about that. They are not immune to the Black Scroll. They're immune to white chlorination syndrome, a completely unrelated thing. Though notice how there's a white book and a black book, and a white chlorination syndrome and a black chlorination syndrome. Just kind of interesting to note. And we're given to understand that somehow if Shades were inside them, then the Black Scroll wouldn't affect them. But why? Like, how does that make sense? But once again, even if we do accept this, how did they develop sentience? Why should they have been designed in such a way that they could possibly have completely 100% human intelligence? They basically just built humans. And there's another issue here. If they've been around for over 1,000 years, why didn't the Shades just go into them? Like, what went wrong? Now, to be clear, if you play through this game for all the endings, I think it could be over 70 hours, and in addition, there's a lot of supplemental material, so all this might very well be explained somewhere, but from my perspective, it just seems to make no sense. Why wouldn't we have some idea of this stuff? Like, why would the replicants be able to gain intelligence? How did they? And Why, like, how could they run around this long? And do they not age? Because Devla and Popola didn't age. Yeah, this is all explained, even if it doesn't quite make sense. The Gestalts were put into suspended animation to prevent regression so that they could go into the replicants once the white chlorination syndrome bacteria had been eliminated. And it was only eliminated these 1,300 years later. And they emerged into a world where the replicants had completely developed sentience in their own cultures, even though they'd apparently been cloned all this time by the androids, like Popola and Devla. These replicants from the regressed Gestalts saw them all as mindless monsters. Another problem with the story, I think, is that the explanation for what caused the end of the world is a disease that doesn't actually exist. And that strikes me as kind of ridiculous. Like, of all the things that could end the world, you know, they had to make something up. There are so many plausible things that could totally destroy the world as we know it. Or could certainly end our society as we know it, I mean. And we don't need to make them up. There are already plenty of these things. And, I mean, you know, climate change, you know, flooding a lot of important areas. Say, the shift in political forces leading to World War III. Why, maybe there's some kind of rampant industrialism results in the loss of our resources. Or, say, we run out of oil. That one in particular is very likely and is going to happen. Well, unless we switch to some other power source first. Or maybe, say, there's some kind of EMP wave from the sun or something, and that knocks out the grid in at least a huge chunk of the world. That would take decades to recover from, at least. And with all of these, or heck, even if it has to be disease, maybe microorganisms like viruses, or not viruses, but bacteria that say, become immune to antibiotics through their overuse.
This is all too easy.
I'm almost disappointed.
With all these things that could easily bring about, you know, that or at least have some connection to reality, they have to make up magic, and that's what ends our civilization? Because I admit it is pretty difficult to conceive of our civilization totally collapsing. But, come on! Magic is the explanation? That is so stupid. At least that seems that way to me. But really, in many ways, there are a lot of elements in Nier that don't quite, I wouldn't say make sense, but don't quite, well, like there are a lot of corny moments, for example. Like some of that scene where Grimoire Weiss was being tempted by Grimoire Noir when the Shadow Lord made his big appearance. And these sorts of scenes, well, they aren't bad per se, but I think what makes them work is the how great the overall presentation is, and the fact that most of it is not corny. Most of it really comes across as pretty interesting. Another issue I guess I have with it is I feel like to some extent a lot of its deconstructions of video game conventions don't quite go far enough. But I feel like that isn't the point. Like, pointing out how goofy these side quests and stuff are isn't the overall intention. It's more incidental to the main goal. Indeed, this particular director, in general, tends to make video games that... Well, I mean, the whole Drakengard series is like that. At the same time that it has these surreal, somber stories, it tries to issue statements about mainstream video game conventions. Like, what kind of person would kill all of these enemies? Like, the prominence of...
Who are these guys?
Certainly not your garden variety shade.
Their bodies are fully functional.
I've heard of this. A cursed element, incomplete shades gag.
Once again, you see, now we get to hear the voice in Kaine's head, that of Tyran. And of course, Kaine was hearing it all along, though. The story is still the same, we just have new information. And that display of how things can change if you do have more information is, I think, a very interesting, well, storytelling idea. And that's kind of one of the issues, I feel like, is a story about this wouldn't really work outside of a video game context. Or, I mean, that's not an issue, it's just interesting to note. Other media tend not to have as a standard convention for almost all of them. Almost all of the well-known ones, anyway. Like a protagonist who goes around slaughtering enemies in huge, just in droves. That's really the big weakness of many video game stories, is they have to find a way to work in, well, this is how the protagonist, like, went around murdering hundreds and hundreds of opponents, and still have them try to somehow be the hero. And I think it's very interesting that they sort of take that idea and then bring it to its logical conclusion. What kind of person would do that? What kind of circumstances would compel someone to do something like that? It's also worth noting that the, you might say, well, it's sort of undercut by the fact that in the end, Nier wins. Well... this is kind of a spoiler, but he doesn't exactly win. Because, as it turns out, the Shadow Lord's defeat does not mean the destruction of the Black Sprawl. Or the Black Scroll, I mean. Because, on the contrary, the whole point of Project Gestalt was to do away with the Black Scroll. Or at least the, disease that became the Black Scroll. Although, once again, the idea of a magical disease really... it just strikes me as so sort of undermining the whole lofty seriousness of all of this. Still, though, as I said before, the presentation, and particularly the music, is good enough that even all of the more strange and implausible things seem somehow like you accept them. And I have to say, great presentation, and certainly really oppressive, somber tones do tend to draw my attention, and make me more willing to forgive certain flaws I might not be willing to forgive elsewhere. But there's still one thing that I just can't figure out at all. So, Nier, the idea seems to be that each Gestalt has a replicant body that's been assigned to it. Right? So the Shadow Lord, for example, is the Gestalt for Nier here, his replicant, because the Shadow Lord's the original Nier. But does that mean that this Nier has been alive for all this 1,000 plus years? For all these 1,000 plus years, have no one been aging or having kids? But as you can see, we get to see that Nier really was even less of a good guy than we thought.
Kaine, Emil, I want you to... Look, I'm sorry, alright?
Sorry for what?
I'm going to talk to the villagers. I want them to let you in.
Oh, it's no big deal. Right, Kaine?
I'm used to it.
Well, you shouldn't be. It's crap, and it needs to change.
I wish everyone felt the same way. It's alright, really. I like camping out with Kaine. It's kind of fun, in a weird way. Sometimes we sit around the fire and tell stories, or roast...
Emil, that's enough. I got a fucking image to maintain.
What's going on? There's dozens of them!
These are creatures of the darkness. Lure them to the light. Pathetic to the end, I see.
Aim for that stone statue. It's the leader.
Oh, you're funny. I'm gonna start crying here.
Now, obviously, Tyran is a shade that is quite regressed from who he once was. Although even who he once was certainly a bad person.
Foolish creature.
And so you see, all of the, pretty much all of Nier's struggles are recast in this way. He wasn't against mindless opponents at all.
Have you felt the beast?
In fact, many of them were basically noble. And I remarked that this hero had an almost heroic quality. And so it does. For here is a hero despite his own mistakes.
Oh, this is one stubborn son of a bitch.
Damn it! Damn it!
Hey there, sunshine. You feeling bad for this freak, are ya? Ain't no turning back now. You gotta lust for blood. You gotta embrace the slaughter. All we know is the thrill of battle. Ain't that right, Kaine?
Because of course, if Kaine goes, feels compassion, then Tyran wins, and her humanity leaves her. But it makes you wonder, if Nier could understand them, would he still have fought them there?
Kaine!
I don't know. I'd hope so, but...
Oh, you're kidding me!
Kaine!
Kaine, are you all right? We've got to get help.
I fear there is little we can do.
No! Kaine!
Get back.
What is that?
It's all over for you, sunshine.
Kaine! Kaine! Look at Kaine's shade!
We've no other choice. We must strike it down.
Kaine! Please come back!
Stay your blade. Magic is required against this foe. Oh dear.
Kaine! Kaine!
Kaine.
I couldn't hold it back. I can't be with you.
We're always going to be together, Kaine. If you transform again, we'll just stop it again, as many times as it takes. I don't care how tough it is, we're gonna get you back! I like sleeping outside because I'm with you, Kaine. I'm able to ignore my appearance and keep going because of you. I'm weak and sad and lonely, but somehow you make me strong. You're my friend and I need you, so you can't go away!
All right. All right. Stop crying. Thank you. I'm all right.
I can't say I know of any other video game that has a character like Tyran, who's an important character to the story, but who you don't even hear about until after you've actually, well, finished the game. And so while it might have its flaws, I think that Nier, overall, is fantastic. Probably one of the, well, certainly one of the most interesting video games on the PlayStation 3. Perhaps not the most, especially since you can't quantify these things, but one of them. And I'm very glad to have been able to go through it. I've never seen this sort of dark fantasy aesthetic being used for our real world, albeit far in the future and after a great catastrophe. But I think you can see easily just how interesting it is and why it's so interesting to be able to go through the video game again and see it in a whole new light. Although I do have some other criticisms, and really, besides those I said earlier, it has to relate to, well, sacrifice. Destroying the Aerie, even if the Aerie is superstitious and xenophobic and whatever else. Like, that is such a huge event that they shouldn't let you be able to do this in any order. That should be the final one. Because if you do it any earlier, the others are all anticlimactic in comparison. Like, by a huge margin. Except perhaps for Facade. But getting the rest of the parts, well, those should come first. There shouldn't be an option to do the Aerie section earlier. I mean, I do appreciate the sort of freedom it gives you, but occasionally freedom should be curbed to some extent for the sake of the story, for the sake of making the points that the designer wants to make. In this case, you know, our director, what's his name? I've been avoiding saying it because I don't remember. It's Taro something. He's an odd duck. Often shows up to interviews and public events wearing a mask with Emil's face. Otherwise, besides these reservations, though, I think Nier's pretty fantastic. Maybe its farming elements could stand to be a little more, perhaps I could say, less simple, less grindy, better integrated. And, perhaps it should be set up such that, well, I can't really criticize the side quests for often being so tedious and, well, gamey. Because that's the point, I think, is that they are like that. And I don't know that that's a problem, if it's a matter of conscious design. I have a feeling that it's, it's already kind of a rediscovered classic. It didn't sell that well or get particularly good reviews when it came out. In fact, it even got bad reviews from some places, which like that I don't understand. Like, I can understand maybe it's not your cup of tea, but outright, you know, saying it's bad? I can't understand how you could feel that way about it with all the absolute crap there really is out there. In any case, the sequel, Nier Automata, is, well, I don't know that much about it. Well, I mean, actually, I do know something. I could have sworn I saw somewhere that Devila and Popola were in it. But how could that possibly be? I mean, aren't they dead? Additionally, I do think that Nier can occasionally go a little too overboard with, well, actually no. You know, there's one final comment I want to make about Nier. I think that, to a large extent, that Nier, the replicate Nier, is sort of superior to the Shadow Lord, to Gestalt Nier. In a sort of moral sense. They've both done terrible things, but the difference kind of is that even as he single-mindedly pursues Yona, Nier is willing to stop and try to help other people every chance he gets. Whereas the Shadow Lord does not. The Shadow Lord, on the contrary, takes advantage of his fellow Shades, willingly sacrificing them as pawns in his game to get Yona back. And so as far as that goes, well, I do think that our protagonist, Nier, is superior, is in an ethically stronger position, in whatever tenuous way that may be, to the Shadow Lord. And that counts for something.
Damn it! Where'd they go? Get him! Don't let him escape! There's something over there!
P33. You are an intruder. You must be eliminated. Error. There is something leaking from your eyes. What is crying? Who is Mom? My creator is also dead. He perished hundreds of years ago. 874 years, 10 months, 14 days, 4 hours, and 43 minutes. 44 minutes. I am incapable of being lonely, or missing others, or crying. You will die. Why will they kill you? I will not permit the humans to kill Kalil. Military defense robot P33 will protect you. P33 is charged with defending others. P33 will defend Kalil.
There's gotta be tons of machinery here.
Yeah, but I don't know how much we can actually use.
Oh, wow! Check this out! It looks brand new!
Hey, be careful there.
I'm fine!
Oh no!
Huh?
Look out!
Jacob! Jacob, no! No, this can't be happening! No!
The noise of the intruders caused the structure to fail. They should have proceeded with more caution. One intruder has perished.
The junk heap. Perhaps we should speak to the brothers. They might know something about this.
Also, I think it's interesting that despite all of their, violent flaws, that, well, our protagonists are likable enough. Not likable enough, they're really quite sympathetic. In fact, they only lose any sympathy in the second half. Which I think is a pretty dramatic shift from where we began. This has been Macrophones, everyone. See you around.
Why are you lying out there? I need help. I'll Here, Dad. You can have this cookie.
I don't need it. I'm already full.
But that's what you said yesterday. You haven't been eating anything, have you? Come on. At least take half.
Thanks.
Hey, Dad. Thanks for always being there for me. Oh, here. I brought your half.